All right, so if you have a comment or question, we have mics that will be going around if you want to raise your hand. If you have on the live stream, we can bring it around to Craig at some point, and he'll read some of the comments or questions. These questions and comments, please keep them specifically to this teaching today. Also, you can include stuff from part 1. Okay, so from this teaching on enduring and receiving the crown of life.
When you were presenting discipline, I was also thinking of like our military or the police or other disciplines throughout life. Mm-hmm. Especially I can relate to the military. When you are placed in that stressful environment or that discipline, you're going through a rigorous time of testing to see whether you're going to overcome, you're going to buckle, or you're going to, whatever it is that you're going to do. Some people thrive in that, and they actually look forward to it because they know that they are becoming either stronger or better or more disciplined in their behavior or actions or whatever it may be. So in a lot of ways, when I know that I am being disciplined because I've been wrong, I've been doing something that I'm not supposed to be doing, I also look at other parts of this is Abba that is training me. He is putting me in a position to either overcome, improvise, and adapt to whatever it is he is preparing me for in the future. So in that sense, I get encouraged and strengthened to know that my Abba is looking out for me to do the best that I can when the next challenge comes.
Amen. Amen. I appreciate that. So think of it, and you often see this in Scripture, the military model sort of being right there under or overlaying everything you're looking at. You know, when people first start in the military, what do? They go through a boot camp, which is designed to do what? Break you of every other thought, loyalty, and everything else so that you just trust the leadership that you have. That when they say move, they know you will move. Not only that, they know exactly how you will move, where you will move, how quickly you'll move, because they will have already trained you to fully trust, and they could trust you to do what they said. That's what Abba's doing, but you're going to do it from a whole different point of view. Instead of being disciplined and afraid not to do what you're supposed to do or how that works in the military, here he says, I'm offering you the crown of life. What I want from you is to move when I say move. Stop when I say stop. And trust me. Because guess what? In the military, if you don't, people can get killed. Guess what? In Scripture, when people didn't, people got killed. It's not only not safe for you, it's not safe for everybody else. There's a lot of metaphors you see going back and forth.
Thank you, Rabbi. What a beautiful picture that you just painted. And I want to submit what I got from what you just shared. Wisdom, the man who sits at the gates, the priest, the one who speaks the word of Torah, his right rulings. By coming to him, that is where we get our wisdom, our covering, our protection. And by guarding the commands that come forth from that man that we hear. And tying it in to cursed is the man who trusts in man and makes flesh. The other man that is cursed is the wisdom of the world, that which the Gentiles' wisdom, the wisdom that does not match the wisdom of the Creator through the priests, the prophets that teach the Torah. To see the difference in what we're trusting in and what we're reading and what we're leaning on, so that when we come to you for counsel, that we can lean on what Abba speaks through those that we are submitted to, versus that which we try to gain from the world. And that's where our protection is. That's where our blessing is. And that's where the emanah of protection and the crown of life comes to us. And I can see that in my life as I choose to obey the counsel versus that which I can research or find out on my own. And just thank you. Bless you.
Appreciate that. Appreciate it. Thank you, Tricia. And by the way, kind of taking what she said, when you go to ministry, are you seeking an opinion or counsel? Are you just adding them to the opinion poll of all the other people you're talking to? are you seeking counsel? Are they the first person you go to, or the 7th or 8th or 10th? Because I know when I'm just part of an opinion poll. And I may even actually call the person on that. Are you just wanting my opinion, or are you coming for counsel? Not really a big fan of being part of surveys. I get a lot of phone calls wanting to do surveys. I don't usually take them. Don't have the time for it, because it's a waste of my time. Why are you doing a survey? Trying to find someone that's going to agree with you? Or if you can find enough people that agree with you, then you feel good about what you want to do? Or are you looking for wisdom? Are you looking for counsel? Two different things. Tricia happens to be one of the ladies who, as we've offered in the ministry, who are uncovered, they don't have a husband or a father around to go to, who has asked and we have accepted to offer covering. And so if you want ladies to understand what is it like to actually trust and to put yourself in the hands of at least this leadership, she might be a good person to ask, because she calls on a very regular basis because of the covering that we've offered, because she had wanted one and needed one. And so you might want to, and that may give you a lot of insight into what kind of a person I am, from somebody who uses that, who takes advantage of that level of relationship. Okay? That's really important when we have group dynamics, is to see who the people are that have a relationship that makes you very nervous to ever enter into, but they're already in that kind of a relationship with leadership, and understand, why are you in that relationship? How does that really look? How does it really feel? Does it really work? Why would you do that? Aren't you scared to death that he's going to blah, 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 blah? And by the way, she was before we started. And she was for a while after we started. And that's okay, but she started, and that's the key. But you can talk to Tricia, you can talk to Shira, you can talk to Nate and Dawn, you can talk to other people that have come into a stronger relationship of counsel. You can talk to Dawid, who's starting to do those kind of counsels. You can talk to those who are coming and looking to say, can this really work the way Rabbi's been saying it and the way the book has been saying it, more importantly, the way this says it? What would it actually look like if I tried it? Okay? You could talk to Manny. Manny moved his whole family here just to do this. I did, and by the way, I didn't know he was doing it until he's like, oh, by the way, we're going to be moving to the place. Really? When are you planning to? Oh, we already have a house in contract. Really? He knew what he wanted to do. So you can ask him, well, why would you do that?
You know, Rabbi, I think our group is at a point in our lives that, okay, we get the laws, we understand, we're trying to work our way through it. I've been doing it for 69 years of trying to be what Yahweh wants me to be. But I think we're lacking one thing that I see in the Jewish community, and that is they are confident of their Yahweh, and that they can do all things through him. And so we're coming up to decisions about where to go, what to do, and I think that's a blessing to us, because when we stand before the impossible, like David did, like others, that's when Yahweh will show himself to us. And so I encourage this coming Monday, when we talk about what we're planning on doing, let's go for the gold all the way.
Amen. Amen. Tuesday, but yes. That's okay. Monday, nobody will be here. They're all going to be off property. Oh, you'll be here. There you go. I'll be here too, but Tuesday. I really appreciate that. Look, one of the things that we can learn absolutely from our Jewish brothers is that you want to be not a human who just says, I'm Torah observant. You want a human being Torah observant, not doing Torah. Well, by the way, I'm an Israelite now, and I do Torah. You do Torah? Torah is something you do? You ask a Jew, Now, don't just ask any Jew. Ask an observant Jew. There's a lot of secular Jews, just as a lot of secular Christians, a lot of secular anything. Ask an observant Jew, why do you keep the Torah? And they'll look at you like it's the stupidest question he ever heard. Because I'm a Jew. It's what I do. It's like asking a bird why it flies. Why do you fly? I don't get the question. Asking a fish why it swims. When are you going to get to the place where Torah is who you are, not what you do? Because when it's who you are, when it becomes who you are, there's no issue with how to make your choices. You can invite a Jew all you want to a party on Saturday. He's not coming. The observant ones, okay? They're not coming to a wedding. They're not going to a graduation. They're not going to a funeral. They're not going to work. You can fire them. You can threaten them. You can do whatever you want. They're not doing it. Why? Because you're challenging who they are, not something they do. They don't just keep Sabbath. Sabbath is a part of who they are. The Torah is a part of who. Does that make any sense? Most of us are not there. That's what we need to get. You need to be a human being Torah observant, not a human doing Torah observance. We got to go from human doers to human beers, human beings. It has to be who you are. It has to be part of your whole existence. Because I know there are things, we can make it even simple. There are foods, clean ones, that there's no way you'd ever put it in your mouth. There's just stuff that you've already come to know in your life, either because you've realized it's no good for you because your body can't handle it, or because you just think it's the worst tasting thing on the planet. There's no way, if I put it in front of you, you're even thinking about putting that in your mouth. Why? Because it's you. People have tried to tempt me with all kinds of desserts and things, and I laugh and I go, but you don't know me. I don't eat that stuff. Not that I don't eat sweets and stuff, but there are only specific ones. That stuff we had for dinner the other night with the caramel and the cookies and the brownies and all that stuff, not a thought in my head to eat any of that. You come out with some apple pie, some pudding, which I think we're going to have today, so I'll be eating all of that. But it has to do with you, now Torah being that. So when someone comes at you with something that you would never do, you just should, listen, don't you know me? I would never do that. I can't do that. It's not me. It's like a person knowing they've got like a peanut allergy. They're not going anywhere near anything that has peanuts because it could kill them. But guess what? You should not be going near anything that's going to cause you to break a commandment because it will kill you. But we would avoid peanuts in a much stronger, sort of way than we would avoid breaking a commandment. It doesn't make any sense. Cursed is the man who takes wisdom and counsel from men. Blessed is the man who trusts in Yahweh. One leads to death. What we read that one psalm said, those people love death. They must, because they've totally embraced that's their future. But the other path leads to life. Who's next? Live stream, go ahead.
Yes, from David Botwick Rice. It's kind of a question / comment, I guess. Can a rabbi please speak into being proved and how that can connect to the proof of your Torah observance and that it's not all grace, faith, etc. It is most certainly merited favor.
Okay. That will be in part 4 or 5, because that's part of it. We have to go through blessed is the man, and then we have to go through the endurance, and then we'll get to the proved. So we'll absolutely get there. But as far as specifically what you're talking about, the answer for all of that is in the search for the doctrine of grace. Okay, that teaching covers the whole thing the essence of what you're trying to really get at. Okay? It's trying to understand what this proving and works and what all that has to do with grace and where they relate and favor meriting or favor not merited. There are verses that say you need to walk worthily of the master. Worthily? That sounds like works. That sounds like earning something. Well, it's in your scriptures. You are instructed to walk worthy of your calling in a worthy manner. That's meriting. You know what's really funny? If you go to the Jewish community, if you watch any of the teachings of their rabbis, you know what they talk about all the time? May you merit this and may you merit that. They speak completely the opposite of Christianity. How many people have heard that? You know what I'm talking about? Okay? May you merit favor. May you do things that are pleasing in His sight so that you merit His favor. The complete opposite of what you get out of the mainstream that says, He did everything, we don't have to do anything. Does that really make any sense? How does anybody, if there's thinking in any possible rational way, think that it makes sense that you get everything and did nothing? I mean, tell me how that makes any sense. Why would any being give you everything and you didn't do anything? Oh, but I believe in Messiah. Even the demons believe in Messiah. So what? See, these are the things that, it's almost like we all have to be drugged in a like some sort of a strange, mesmerized, hypnotic state to have bought into all of that. And you know what the answer is? You were. He says, I've given them strong delusion. What do you think that means, strong delusion? You see things as are when they're not. You things that are not that are. He says, I've given them strong delusion. And some of you realize, man, I was pretty deluded. And instead of realizing you were the one that was deluded, you got mad at the system. So you get all angry and start backlashing against all of Christianity. You were the one that was deluded. There's a lot of systems out there just as bad, if not worse, or whatever they are out there that you never had any interest in. You weren't deluded about them. That's why you weren't that. But you happened to be raised in a society where your family was part of a society where the odds were you were going to be raised Christian. So that got to be the delusion you got to be a part of. Now we're trying to wake up out of the stupor from the delusion and see, wow, this is the real world. That's what the book's really talking about. This is who our Messiah really is, not the way he was described to us before. And no, he wasn't like at Woodstock. That's the way they make him look. I mean, he would have been a guy walking around the streets, in the 60s, hanging out with his, disciples, smoking a fatty. The rabbi say that? Yeah, he did. But that's what they make him look like. Am I wrong? I am not trying to be offensive. That's what they make him look like. That's not what our Messiah looked like. He was a carpenter. The guys they put on TV looked like you could blow on them and blow them away. You ever see a carpenter with all the stuff they've got to do, especially when they didn't have all the machines they have today to do it? These are pretty strong guys. There was no problem flipping over those tables, and there was a reason nobody approached them to stop them. You see this long-haired, frail guy going, knocking over tables. Get the guy in the robe out of here, knocking the tables away. No, Yeshua was like, oh my, we better get out of his way. He didn't have any problem flipping things over and looking people in the eye and says, you better just get out of my way. We don't picture things right. It's a carpenter. That's a whole different deal.
Yes, a question from Melissa Deacon. She says, why salt in Jeremiah 17 for a parched land like Lot? And why blessed is the man who has his kidneys tried? In Jeremiah and Psalms, why kidneys?
Okay, I didn't catch the first half. I can answer the kidney part. Give me the first half again.
It was about the salt in Jeremiah 17.
About the salt. Okay, so the salt in verse 6, you ever see like the salt plains? You see the salt over there by the Dead Sea? Anything growing over there? No. So that's kind of what they're talking about. He's trying to show that this is, it says, when, and shall inhabit the parched places and the wilderness and a salt land that is not inhabited. This are all pictures, like a land flowing with milk and honey. Is it really flowing with milk and honey? No. But it means an abundant land with overflowing things that you would want. A rich land. Well, the opposite metaphor was a land that was a salt, dried, parched, dead, nothing there. Okay, hopefully that answers Melissa's question for that part. The other part is, when you see the idea of the kidneys, we have a phrase now that we've had for quite a while as an idiom. We say, well, I feel it in my gut, right? Just don't have, what does your gut tell you? Doing a gut test, That's what it's talking about by kidneys. It's a similar type of idea. I test the kidneys. I want to see what you're really about. I want to see what you're really made out of. I'm going to try you and see what you've really got. So that was the metaphor for then. Now we use the word gut. The same type of thing. The kishkis, okay? So you want to use Yiddish, okay? Okay? Feel it in my kishkis. Listen, every society has their own idioms. Part of the reason we don't understand Scripture so well is because we don't know the idioms they were using. And there was a lot of them. Nate, go ahead.
That's what I was going to comment on was in the medical profession we have a thing where if somebody is clinically compromised with their systems, we'll have what's called challenging the kidneys. And if you think about the kidneys do a lot of functions. They regulate blood pressure, they get the fluids out of your system, and they also, more importantly, they filter. They take out the bad stuff that's within your system, and they get rid of that, but they allow the good stuff to stay within your system when they're operating correctly. So it just really resonates when it said kidneys, for me at least, that
Sure.
This makes a whole lot of sense that Yahweh would test us to see if we would be willing to keep the good stuff within us and flush out the bad.
Excellent. Appreciate that. We're getting a lot of the Canadians from Alberta in that area, typing in. So we had David and we got Melissa. Excuse me. Anybody else, real quick, because we got probably time for one or two more.
Okay, this will be the last one. Madison Couch has a question. She says, you mentioned that we are asleep in the ground after our last breath. Are believers who have died asleep in the ground until resurrection, or are they in heaven until his return?
Okay, I did say let's keep it to this teaching, but since I sort of mentioned something, I opened up that door. So that is my fault. All right. I don't know how much of this I covered in the Millennium and Kingdom. Anybody remember? Did I cover some of that in the Millennium and Kingdom? I think I did. Okay, the Millennium and Kingdom teaching I would recommend. Scripture, as far as I can tell, has verses like the dead know nothing, the dead are asleep. Now, think of it this way. If we're all looking forward to the resurrection, and those who died in the Messiah, those who of the righteous will be raised from the dead first, does it make any, see, this is the kind of stuff that, again, where you go, the strong delusion, what sense does it make to be up in heaven, already having all of the things you've always wanted, and then be thrown back in a flesh suit? What sense would that make? So my best understanding is that dead is dead. We are in the ground, we are asleep, as far as we understand. Now there is a part of us that Abba breathed into us, that part of us that has all the information about who you are, and somehow they get stored on a spiritual thumb drive or whatever he's got where he stores things, so that you are still preserved as you somewhere, but you're not conscious. So that there's you to put back in a body in resurrection. Whatever that body looks like. 1 John tells us we don't know what he is like, but we know that we'll know what he's like when we see him, when we're already changed to be like him. Because then we're going to be in whatever that kind of, being that would be, what kind of body that would be. And so I know that's a struggle for a lot of people that have come out of, with the Catholic Church's influence of this whole idea of you die, you go right to somewhere. And you're conscious and awake, and you either get your reward, which is either somehow burning in hell or going up in heaven and strumming a harp and being bored out of your mind. That's just my picture. ADHD, harp strumming, not real good. Okay, so, but the idea is this. We have to go with all the verses. I did promise you guys a long time ago at Sukkot a part 4 to that teaching. And that part 4 was supposed to cover the state of the dead. So I owe that to you. I just haven't ever gotten around to it. My fault. Sorry about that. I have the teaching. I've done it in the past. It just somehow, all these other things just keep coming up that seem more important to do. So I apologize to the person for not giving you a more in-depth answer. It needs verses to prove my point. I don't have them at my fingertips. But a simple answer being, at this point, I understand that the dead are unconscious, fully unaware. The metaphor is used as sleep. We see that all over scriptures, that they sleep. So they may have some sort of awareness, like a dream. I don't know, who knows what that means, but they're not consciously aware of what's going on around them until the resurrection, where they're then awakened at the resurrection. Okay?
I have an interesting observation on the Hebrew side of things. Most of the time in the Psalms, what I'm seeing as far as blessed is the man, is that it's referring to Ashrei Ha'ish, meaning the happiness of the man. And that's brought out in Young's literal when he's giving the translation literally there. But then there's other places, like in Jeremiah, where it's actually a reverse of the curse thing, where it's actually talking about blessed, Baruch.
Right.
So what do you believe concerning the significance of those two differences?
Again, we have to sometimes realize that getting into the actual Hebrew definitions doesn't always help us. Sometimes we have to go back to what my father taught me when I used to ask him what a word meant, and he would say, well, you got two choices. Go look it up, or look at the context on how it's used. So we're looking at the phrase, blessed is the man, and allowing the scripture to tell us when that phrase is used, what is it trying to teach us? So it's not just about the underlying Hebrew. Does that make any sense? In other words, you can't just get literal word for word. And by the way, that's where people get all kinds of problems from when they try to define things, because they think they're so smart now because they can look up Greek or Hebrew, and then they think they have understood all of these things. Because they'll take a word like rabbi and say, well, that means my mighty one. Well, literally, it may have something to do with someone in authority or mighty. Or it could be abundant, okay? There are different definitions for every word. I mean, you ever look up in a dictionary and see the word you're looking up has 5 different choices, and some of them don't even sound like they're talking about the same word? Right? Happens all the time. The thing is, it's not the literal breaking down the etymology of the word to figure out what it means. How is the word used? Webster, if he was alive, would tell you the way he made his dictionary was based on how words are used. Language is fluid. Words are used today very differently than they were used, many, many years ago. Words in English in England may mean something different than they do here, or in New Zealand, or in Australia, or in some other country. It's still English. Yet they don't always mean the same thing, because usage is really what defines a word. How people use it, how people understand it. Because language is what's the point of language? Communication. I want to say something to communicate something to you. If you don't receive it the way I intended it, we're not communicating. So language is more about what it's communicating. So when we read the phrase, blessed is the man, I don't want to necessarily just break down the word blessed and, Ashrei Ha'ish, and I understand that, okay? What I want to do is I want to say that phrase is now being connected to all of these things. Whatever that blessed is the man means in Hebrew, and it can mean different things, is connected to these things. And so I want us to embrace that those things that are connected to the phrase, blessed is the man, those things are related to enduring the trial. Does that make more sense? Okay? Sometimes it's important just to break the word down to know what it means, because it might not mean what you thought it did. But sometimes we're dealing with a phrase here, we're dealing with an idea. It goes beyond just breaking down the word. It goes beyond just breaking down the word. Like when we looked at the word evil, that word evil can mean evil just as you always understand it. It also can mean affliction and adversity, which the way it's being used in some of the places we looked fits even better, and it actually fits into the same idea as the enduring the trial. Because blessed is the man, then it says that they get to be rescued and delivered out of adversities. Otherwise, it's translated in English as evil. And so don't get caught up on just one-to-one definitions. That can sometimes help and not always, so be careful that you don't use a one-size-fits-all with that. I'm saying sometimes it will help, not always, because sometimes it's the phrase and the way it's being used that's much more important to be paying attention to. What is being connected to the phrase? Amen? Amen. All right, that's going to close it up. 1, 2, 3, Shabbat!